Have you ever wondered what happens when the people who raised you decide, the moment you turn 18, that you're not their kid anymore? You're their unpaid staff? That's basically my life, and I'm about to walk you through exactly how it blew up. I left home at 20, and honestly, calling it home feels generous. It was more like a workhouse where I did the parenting, so my actual parents could enjoy having kids without doing any of the work. My younger siblings got hugs and bedtime stories. I got a mental list of chores and a running tally of everything I supposedly owed them just for existing under their roof. So the day I packed my bags, my father didn't even look up from the TV. He just said, "Don't bother coming back," like I was the problem for wanting a life. Fine by me. I found the cheapest, tiniest apartment in town, and I worked myself to the bone to keep it. 4 years later, same job, same address, still standing. Funny thing, my parents lasted less than a month without me before the calls started. Suddenly, I wasn't the disappointment anymore. I was the solution to a childcare problem they created. I said no. My dad tried the guilt trip, told me family comes before selfish freedom. I told him my life counts too. And for the first time, I was actually living it. He warned me I wouldn't last without them. Reader, I lasted. Eventually, the silence cracked and we kind of started talking again. On my terms, which drove him up the wall. They'd still ask me to watch the two youngest, conveniently ignoring the two teenagers living in that house who were more than capable. When I pointed out the hypocrisy, I got gaslit and ghosted for months. Then they'd crawl, back needing something. Story of my life. Here's where it gets good. I just bought a secondhand gaming console. Could only afford it because it came bundled with one game. My mother shows up out of nowhere, drops my two youngest siblings on me like packages, and vanishes until 10 at night, only coming back because I called and threatened to call the cops if she didn't. Next morning, console's gone. Turns out one of the kids took it home. I rode over immediately. Found my sibling in tears because the battery died and nobody brought the charger. My dad grabbed it and said I could have it back once I stepped up and helped more. I told him I'd dial the police right there in his living room if he didn't hand it over. I actually started dialing. My mom yanked it out of his hands and gave it to me herself, calling herself a traitor in the process just to avoid cops showing up. I walked out telling them clearly, next time, I call the police first, and if they want a console for the kids so bad, they can buy their own. Silence followed. My mom texted once, begging me to babysit again. My answer? Pay me up front, or don't bother asking. A week of nothing after that. Fine by me. Fast forward a few months. I'd almost forgotten I ever posted about this online, until I stumbled across my own thread by accident. Turns out there was a whole part 2 I never got around to sharing. After 3 months of radio silence, they called again, like the console incident never happened. Same demand, different day. I told them, I babysit for pay now and only on my day off, which happened to shift to Sundays after I picked up extra shifts. Partly for the money, partly specifically so I'd stop being free on the day they always ambushed me. My dad exploded, telling me to man up. I reminded him that he worked every Saturday of my childhood and dumped his responsibilities on a literal child so he could forget about them. Now I was doing the same thing he always preached, handling my own life. He started screaming so hard my mom grabbed the phone from him. I laid out my terms. Sundays only, $40, and they provide the food because feeding their kids isn't my financial responsibility. And if anything of mine ever went missing again, the police would be my first call, not my last, since I'd kept the receipt and serial number from the console incident just in case. My mother lost it, swearing at me until she realized I'd gone. Quiet and wasn't reacting. She switched tactics, claiming my young teenage siblings needed a break from responsibilities now that I wasn't around. I laughed and asked when exactly I ever got a break. She tried the classic, "You're the oldest. It's different" line. I wasn't buying it. I told her straight. They parentified me, stole my childhood, and now it's hypocritical to expect the same sacrifice from someone who doesn't even live there anymore. She played victim, said the teenagers were rebelling. I told her that wasn't my circus. My dad jumped back on, yelling some more, and I just laughed because it was all noise, no substance. My mom made one last plea. I upped my price to $50, repeated my terms, and hung up while they argued with each other over what to do. Weeks of silence later, a Saturday morning knock rattled my door. That unmistakable two-handed pounding my mother's used my whole life, followed by footsteps sprinting away and my two youngest siblings bickering right outside, banging on the door themselves. She dumped them and bolted. Because I'd learned my lesson, I had a plan ready. I popped the screen off my ground floor window and simply climbed out, leaving them stranded, then called my elderly neighbor, a sweetheart who already knew the whole saga, and had her report 2 kids abandoned in the hallway. Police came and collected them. When my parents called later, furious, I played dumb, and my mother admitted flat out that she'd dropped the kids expecting me to answer. I reminded her I'd told her repeatedly I worked Saturdays now. She screamed, asking how she was supposed to know that, conveniently forgetting every conversation where I'd said exactly that. She got charged with child abandonment, ended up with a fine and a criminal record, her first strike. My dad dodged charges since he was at work, though apparently he was quietly furious with her too, which I found hilarious given his own track record. Thanksgiving came, and I walked into an obvious ambush. My dad sat smoking at the table like a mob boss, informing me I was moving back in, paying rent, and taking over parenting duties because the fine had wrecked their finances. I said no, repeatedly. He lunged at me. Bad move. I'd spent months in the gym, had steel-toed boots on, and dropped him with a kick and a punch before he even landed a hit. He hit the floor, threw up from the pain, and I calmly informed everyone that my phone had been recording the entire time. He told me to get out and never come back. I did, after grabbing a turkey leg on my way out. My siblings have been quietly rooting for me ever since, joking about Dad's groin while I spent Christmas with a friend's family who's already invited me back for the next holiday. Then came the twist nobody saw coming. My mother had been pregnant with a sixth child, something they never mentioned during their Thanksgiving guilt trip. A sibling found my Reddit account, showed our parents, and they showed up screaming that I'd humiliated them publicly. I didn't back down, listing every reason they'd earned that reputation themselves. My dad looked ready to swing again until I reminded him how his groin felt last time. He left, dragging my mom by the hand, yelling that I owed them money for the fine. I told them to get lost. Not long after, I learned my mother had lost the baby. 7 months in, a fall on wet porch. Steps, landing face first in gravel. She blamed me entirely, insisting the miscarriage was my fault for not moving back to help. They showed up again, her on crutches, to tell me so to my face. I pushed back, pointed out that a pregnancy at 45 carries its own risks, and if anyone was to blame, it was my father for never fixing that rotted, railingless porch he'd ignored for years. He hit me again. I didn't hold back this time, broke his nose, knocked out 2 teeth, and only stopped when my mother's screaming snapped me out of it. Police showed up, cuffed me, hauled him to the hospital, but between the hallway CCTV and my own phone, recording from inside my apartment, it was ruled clean self-defense. Now they're threatening to sue for his medical bills and their old fine, but a lawyer friend of a friend says they don't have a case. My oldest sibling called me a hero. My other siblings admitted they used to blame me for leaving, until they realized becoming an adult means choosing your own path, and that they're relieved there won't be another baby added to a house already stretched thin. As for the ashes, the urn came home suspiciously fast. Faster than any crematorium should manage, which sent me down a rabbit hole of doubt. So I went back, uninvited, and confronted them both. My mother, still bruised and on crutches, broke down and swore the pregnancy and loss were real, showing me the urn herself. She explained the fall, rushing to a doctor's appointment, slipping on a toy on porch stairs that had lost their railing years ago, landing stomach first with nothing to grab. A boy, she said. Her doctor warned she can't safely try again when I finally asked why she blamed me. My father cut in and screamed that if I'd just moved back like he demanded, I'd have been there to help, and none of this would have happened. I fired back that if he'd fixed the porch instead of being cheap, none of this would have happened either. He grabbed an old hunting knife, screamed at me to leave, and disowned me on the spot. I told him I'd stopped seeing him as a father years ago, warned him a restraining order was coming, and that if he ever raised a hand to my siblings the way he did to me, he'd be losing more than teeth next time, and I'd have CPS and the police on speed dial. I left flipping him off from my bike. I'm filing for that restraining order now, saving up for a new place once my new job kicks in, and honestly, I don't know if I have it in me to keep updating this story. Some things are better left closed. But if my being the villain in his story is what keeps my siblings safe, I'll wear that title without complaint.